it's bubbly. I have 2 tea bags of Earl Grey. I thought I would switch it up a bit. I forgot how much I love the smell of Earl Grey tea. Too much time spent on that. Alright. Actually. Okay. It's really hot, so we'll leave that for just a bit. Alright, let's interstate to look, and we couldn't freaking find it on Google Maps or on any paper map that we had. We even asked locals about the creepy gas station out on that stretch of road, and we were met with confused looks. Like, are you sure that you weren't traveling on so-and-so highway or not on the interstate? We had traveled on that interstate since, and there was no rest stop there. That's terrifying. Like, I know it first read, first hear, that could sound completely made up, but if you really stop and think about it, is it really that far out of the realm of possibility? Like, people are weird, man. What if it was like, if it actually happened, what if it was like some sort of film set, like a movable film set, quickly built in this completely rural, desolate area? And that's why the gas pumps didn't work, and it was just to lure people in. It's not impossible. I did not believe in ghosts or the afterlife or any religion ever. I just didn't. I do now believe in ghosts. Something is up with them. I was sitting down watching a movie one night at a friend's house in the living room, and he had this giant mirror. And I mean like 4 foot by 6 foot tall mirror on the wall next to the TV, and it was at an angle aiming right at the couch where I was sitting. I even remember the movie that we were watching, Restrepo. So anyways, midway through the movie, I see something reflected in the mirror. It's good to note that there's a road right behind the window where the couch was located, so I figured that it was the reflection of the car lights just passing behind me. It does it again. It does it again. Another reflection, I think. And then, the third time, I saw something pass in the mirror. So I said, F it. I stared at it for 2 seconds. And right there, a shadow passes right in the mirror. It was solid black, this opaque shadow, and I could make out a face, a body, and a hat. Those really old hats that people used to wear in the 40s and 50s. It was like a top hat, but shorter. That thing passed in front of the mirror for a solid second and a half. I got a full view of it. It looked like a man, but at the same time, it wasn't. I yeeted my laptop on the ground. I ran upstairs to my friend's wife, and I told her that I was leaving this place. The crazy thing is she knew exactly what I saw. She asked me if I saw the man that hangs around at night. I was white as a ghost, and she explained that both her sons had to be moved out of the furthest room upstairs, since they said that a man with a hat is always watching in one of the windows. dark shadow in the room. But this room was fully lit. It was so vivid and lively that I could draw a picture of exactly what I saw down to the details. It was as if a locked character in a video game walked in front of the mirror. I can put it that way. Now, there is a big stigma about Ouija boards and ghosts in my family, so no one talks about them, and my mom hates to talk about ghost sightings, and she told me to never touch a Ouija board. I never understood why. My mom never wanted to tell me why. No one in my family ever talks about ghosts. I only know that an incident happened with my two uncles, my aunt, and my mother one day. I brought this story up to my mom, and she kinda got weird with me. She asked me if I had touched a Ouija board or if I ever saw a ghost before that experience, and I never did. She asked me to not sleep at that house ever again, so this kind of freaked me out, and I never slept there again. A year later, they moved out while I was in college, and when I came down for the holidays, I went down to visit my family, and I ended up going to visit them at their new house. They brought up the ghost conversation right away. Apparently, her partner got really violent one night and blacked out. He doesn't remember what happened. When they moved out, they believe that they brought some spirit lady over with them. Okay, I was confused. I thought they meant that a ghost followed them from the old house, but what they meant is they brought a professional to the house to take a look at the haunting or something. Here we go. When that lady came in, she sensed something was wrong, so she lit up some grass. She was a Native American woman, and she did some chanting and some prayers. Apparently, after a few minutes, there was a loud yell in the house, and stuff started banging on the walls all over the place. It was like somebody apparently was taking a sledgehammer and knocking on the walls until she finished. She told them that something evil resided there and they needed to leave. And they did. I do not believe in ghosts per se or an afterlife, but I do believe something beyond us exists out there, and we just created the image of ghosts around something that we do not understand. Alright, my 4-year-old son has an imaginary friend that he talks to when he's in his room. They have full-blown conversations. He'll tell his friend about his day, or what he's going to eat for dinner, or what happened on an episode of Paw Patrol. And then he'll even talk to him like he's having a conversation. And he'll say things like, oh, that's so cool, etc. But he doesn't like me coming near the room because he says that his friend is a little bit shy. He described his friend as a tall, skinny man with a, quote, kind-looking face, unquote. was nobody there. I freak out and I cover my head with all of my blankets, and I lay there for what felt like quite a bit until I eventually fell asleep. I'm sure there is a completely rational explanation for this. Maybe it was my mom and I just didn't hear her open and close the door to leave again. Maybe there was no one there at all and I imagined the whole thing. I don't know. It's not a super interesting ghost story, but it's all I've got. And it's the only really weird story that I have from my childhood that I still cannot explain today. Okay, I guess it's time for my long story. I was 5 at the time. I just moved to Florida from New Jersey. Lived in the back of an apartment complex, and we were on the 3rd floor. It was only my mother and I. And she told me recently that every single night she had heard noises of knocking and banging and such around the apartment. The kicker of it all that proved it. I was in my room with a vaulted ceiling and had stuffed animals on shelves, which were way higher than I could possibly reach. I was playing in there with some toys while my mother was making dinner, and the door was wide open. Out of nowhere, my door slammed shut. It slammed hard. Of course, my mother runs into my room to check on me. Apparently, I was laying in my bed, and all of my stuffed animals were in a pile in the center of my room. We took a week vacation after that. Another time of proof, my mother went for some water or something in the middle of the night, and she saw me sleepwalking around the house, and she stated that I looked like I was chasing something around our house. Oh God. She called out my name, and apparently I answered her in a deep male voice. She then ran out of the house and did not return until morning. I don't blame her. I still get chills thinking about this. There were so many other experiences just like that one. God, I hope the mom, I hope she took you with her. Just runs out and leaves you there. That's not funny. Alright, a few years back, I purchased a bankrupt house for myself. After purchasing, I decided to paint all of the walls and renovate some of the interior by myself. So my dad and my brother went to Home Depot, and I was scraping off the old poster glue and some of the poster that was left on the 1st floor girls' room. Actually, the person living before left some of the clothes and even some of the toys in that room. I personally cleaned everything out from in there. We decided to purchase and leave paint there and leave. Oh, we left. All of the work that we were going to do would be the next day. I was doing some minor work and alone on that home when suddenly I hear the sound of a crying baby. I look around and I felt like it was coming from the basement, and I was all alone, and we only had one central light which was working of course, in the basement. Although I went down to the last step and I checked, I did not see anyone down there, but I kept hearing were small panels missing on the wall at the bottom of the storeroom, which was almost 2 to 3 feet down. We checked inside, and it was a small tunnel, and it was turning after 4 or 5 feet. I don't like this story so far. My father asked my brother to go inside and check if anything was in there, but he was so scared, so he asked me to do it. I went crawling inside the tunnel, and I decided to go backwards after the turn. I turned so she could show me that there was nothing but a wall behind it. The light started flickering for about a good whole minute. And during that flickering, 2 doors on an old wooden bookshelf in the bar opened up, and a book came flying off of the shelf. I also recall that it got very, very cold in the bar. At this point, everyone is pretty freaked out, and we rushed to close up and leave. There have been plenty of ghost stories about this bar, and I do have a few other freaky experiences that have happened in this bar to me personally. However, this one is by far the most vivid and the most seen by more than one person. I am choosing to omit the name of the bar because I don't want to turn it into some crazy ghost hunting spot. I get that. It's still my local dive, and I like being able to get a seat there. That being said, there are many patrons who have claimed to have had paranormal experiences there as well. It's up to you if you want to trust a bunch of drunks about their stories. I was always skeptical and even had to try to write off past experiences as weird, but coincidence. And I was sure if I did some investigating, I could scientifically explain the things that happened, like weird noises, voices, etc. However, after that incident of the ghost going through the door, I am a true believer that the place is haunted. Yeah, that was a good one. Okay. Have you guys ever heard of the Reddit lamp story? It's not really ghostly, but it is pretty spooky in its own right. And I've not actually read the story. I need to look it up. But apparently it's a true story, and I know the gist of it, so I'm just gonna tell you what I know, and if I get the details wrong, it's because I haven't actually read the story, but I do know the basics. So, this young guy, he is going to college and living his life, excited for his studies. He is going to class one day and he accidentally trips outside on the concrete. He trips and he hits his head. I think he was like pretty embarrassed, understandably, and it's fine. He gets up, goes to class, and he sees this really, really beautiful girl. I think she's in the same class as him. They start talking, they start dating, they fall madly in love, and they get married. And over the course of the next 10 years, they have 2 children, 2 boys, I believe. And about 10 years later, things are good. He has a great family, a great job. But just kind of one day, out of the blue, I believe he's in his living room, and he sees this weird lamp. And I'm pretty sure it was like a lamp that he had seen it every day for however many years. But one day he's looking at it and he just kind of feels like there is something off. And it's really weird, right? Because it's a piece of furniture that has been in his house for however long. But he just kind of becomes like fixated on it for some reason. And he believes that there's something off, but he can't really pinpoint what. And she actually leaves. She takes her sons and she leaves him. So he's sitting there on this weird day, one of the days. I believe he gets up when he sees this lamp kind of start to glow out of nowhere. It just becomes like a weird ball of light. He gets up and he notices that this lamp turns into like a sort of portal, and he falls through the portal. And you know what happens? He finds himself on his college campus, on the ground, on the cement, where he had fallen, where he had tripped and fallen 10 years earlier. And he realizes that that entire 10-year span of meeting the love of his life, falling in love, marrying, having a family, having a job, all of that, the entire decade, was not real. It was a dream, a hallucination that had occurred while he was knocked unconscious. And I was looking this up earlier today. This is not that uncommon. This happens to a lot of people, where they go into these dreams that literally last to them decades, where they have families, spouses, and children, and then they wake up and they realize that it was all a dream, and it actually puts people into shock, like depression, because you wake up and you're mourning all of these people that did not exist in your life, and it is crazy. It might be one of the craziest phenomenons that I have recently learned about. Yeah, I want to do more research on it because it's pretty fascinating. There's another one where a woman fell asleep and she lived an entire lifetime. She was 21. She had her own baby in this dream, and she lived every single day. She woke up, she went to sleep in her dream, watched her son grow up, watched her son get married and have children of his own. She became old, she became a grandmother, and then she woke up one day, 21 years old again,